Okay. Just give this a quick test, make sure she's streaming right. Yep, it's all live now.
Right, we're on, I guess.
All right, so let's close that. Killing all the background stuff I don't need. Okay. All right, everyone, because I'm streaming this actually onto my YouTube channel, so everyone at least has an idea of who I am. I'm Adra. I use she/her pronouns in that. And I'm currently live streaming with a friend of mine.
Hi.
Shay. She also uses she/her pronouns. We're going to be sitting here and going into doing a bit of Q&A questions. Anyone can post them during the videos and that, and we'll do our best to try and answer them towards the end of the video. We're going to start off with just a generalized discussion with some of the questions that we have, and also discuss some of the basics of gender theory, especially gender theory within an anarchist perspective. All right. So do you want to start? Do you want to take the first question?
Where are the questions?
You got say you said you sent me screenshots of the first ones.
Okay, let me go look at them.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Okay, so do you want to start off with talking about the cotton ceiling?
Oh, one second. I couldn't hear that the best. I actually am somewhat hard of hearing.
Do you want to start off with the cotton ceiling and what that is?
The cotton ceiling. I'm gonna fire that one onto you because if I start, because that one I'm not as familiar with as you are with it. I'm very vague on that one.
Okay, so the cotton ceiling is an idea developed by Drew DeBoy. I have no idea how to pronounce her last name. She was a trans porn star, and she came up with the cotton ceiling to describe how society marginalizes certain bodies, specifically trans bodies, black people with color bodies, fat bodies, disabled bodies, all of the different types of marginalized bodies, and how those bodies are considered and valued lesser than, and how that ends up having real world consequences for not only relationships, but how that's used to police access to spaces.
That's well put. My knowledge about it is, like I said, pretty limited on that one. I'm familiar with a lot of generalized gender theory and stuff like that. With I can't think of the name of the author at this moment. My brain just usually happens whenever I try streaming something. But yeah, I've read basically the gender theory from. Why can't I think of the name off the top of my head? Basics Gender came out in 1990. Oh my god!
By Judith Butler.
That one. Yeah, that one I'm familiar with. I've also read like just actually been working. I worked my way through. This one was Cyborg Manifesto, which was interesting. There's parts where I disagreed with it because it seemed to go more towards a gender nihilist viewpoint. I don't think that's quite the right way forward.
Okay. Definitely.
Sorry, what was that?
You like to get it might not be a good thing. Gender nihilism.
Oh yeah. Well, gender nihilism. I think the problem is when people go and say. It tends to be the same. To me, it kind of breaks down as being similar to the idea of which we have for it's that Black Lives Matter, all lives matter kind of idea. It tends to assume that gender despite it's a construct and stuff like this, a socially created one can just simply be annihilated, and problems related to that will all be somehow eliminated. And the thing is, gender is something in which we not just perform, but it is something past just that it becomes a heart of one's identity. And trying to erase that is, in essence, trying to erase an essence of our own identity and expressions. I think it's more limiting in our ability of expressing rather than emancipation of it.
To add on to that, it's also the idea of gender nihilism is also a racist construct, and it plays into this colonial narrative that tries to destroy colonial gender narratives. Give me just a second, I have you in.
Yeah, no problem. And for everyone that is currently sitting at home, it's really bright outside, so it's like overwhelming with the background light over there. So I know my thing looks a little like crap on my end, but whatever. But back to you.
What was I saying?
Oh man, you were telling me about how that it is a basis within colonialism and racism.
Yeah, so that's basically all I have to say about that for now, is that the idea of gender abolition feeds into that narrative whereby indigenous cultures' gender constructs were actively erased. And that's still in process. So anytime that you hear Turks talk about that, in addition to being transphobic, they're also racist.
True. Because I'm familiar vaguely with other types of cultures. Obviously, I'm not that. I'm like day glow fucking white, but let's see. Other questions. Some of the questions will start off at us. I can't sing. All right. So the questions so far is they want us. One of them wanted us to go for just generalized concepts and stuff like that. I'm going to go a little bit with one-on-one stuff. I'm going to start off with the basics of kind of like what I think is pretty interesting was history within an overlapping with queer theory within anarchism, like well before Stonewall and everything like that began. A lot of there was. Like the first people to really start doing much for advocacy for what was largely the gay community at that time was pretty much the anarchists. Not all of them, but some of them. And from there, they kind of like began a break off and eventual changing of it over time. It eventually became pretty much appropriated by liberals and became pride to what we have today.
Mm-hmm.
As well as some that are still trying to stick more to the revolutionary matter of it, such as like Bashback, which is largely defunct from what I've heard and seen, but there still seems to be a little bit that pops up. But yeah, the first publications about that were in like 1897 by Brunt, I think his last name was, for a queer publication. So there's certainly a lot of distinctual differences between how anarchism works within queer and also works more specifically within trans issues than what a lot of people are versed in. Now, one of the things in which differs is about the questions within how cis hetero capitalist patriarchy directly affects and helps to enforce elements of trans misogyny against trans ladies such as ourselves. And of course, that's not the only things. This is not going to be into some gross reductionist bullshit that some people like doing. But anything you want to add into that? Or just a lot to take in? I'm just... Yep, that they are. Sorry, my son was going over. He's like, "My tooth's clean." I'm like, "Yeah, that's nice. Good job."
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Okay, so here's the topic. So I made a post in both the AMCOM 101 group and the Newbie Buckets Feminism group about
Yep.
about sex and gender, and how the traditional narrative that your sex is your body and your gender is your mind is inherently transphobic.
Yeah,
And
yes.
So I thought I could clear up a couple of things, because there was a little bit of pushback from people who I think were having a hard time understanding it. And the reason it's inherently transphobic is because whenever it gets brought up, the idea that sex and gender are inherently separate concepts is not entirely historically accurate. Most cultures throughout the world have never sex and gender. They've always been interlinked with each other. It wasn't until 1955, around that time, that John Mooney, whatever his name is, came up with this idea that they're actually separate. And he's not necessarily the best person to go by when it comes to trans issues, because he was extremely problematic.
Yeah.
But it's the idea is, while at first glance might seem okay, it has this idea that your body is not your gender, therefore you're not, quote unquote, your real gender. You're just a fake
Yeah.
gender. And there is an element of self-determination in this. Your sex is not something that's, and it's not this absolute reality that is imposed upon you. It is a social construct in the same way that gender is. What we, the bodies that humans have, is too complex, too diverse to be put into a single gender binary of male and female. We're much more diverse than that. It also erases the fact that intersex people exist. We define our sex for ourselves, and nobody gets to tell us otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh yeah, another one that got fired off to me was the gender reflexivity theory. This was about the causes of gender and the effects of gender, how we see bound and inseparable. I think that was pretty well covered. I think by Judith Butler's look at the idea that we create, so that the genders. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we create the question idea of genders and enforce it in such a way at such a young age, it seems like the performance of gender is inherently a natural construct when it's not. I know that some people don't. I know some people aren't quite familiar with Butler's theory, so I'll basically run it down and give a couple of running examples of what that is. Judith Butler argued that gender is performative. And I'm going to say, and to start from a simple question one can ask: what does it mean to being a woman? Can one be a woman? When we sit here and we ask about what it is to being a woman, one has to wonder where does womanhood originate from? If we assume it originates from the as a biological descriptions of a person's genitalia, that is not a satisfactory answer whatsoever, because one, there's a great deal of variations within what a person can have down there, and what we will say still functionally assume those people to be within society. Say, as well as those who have gender ambiguous parts, oftentimes receive unnecessary surgical procedures to correct them and make their genitalia match. However, there are, say, whatever gender in which they were arbitrarily assigned. Then we also have other problems, and say a good one with that one that I could give would be my son. He has this toy. He loves this toy. It is Darwin, the monkey. And I will tell you that he will insist that that monkey is a he. We have toys like Barbie. We call it she. How can these things, which do not possess gender, do not possess sex, well, they do not possess sex, somehow possess the characteristics of gender? Assuming it's all tied to some biological aspect, none of this makes sense. How we functionally apply gender completely undermines this idea of gender. Hence why we assume that it's a socially constructed idea, which is something we're taught and reinforced along the way by trying to take anything that deviates from those exceptions and try to either shun them away, say shun them out, or in cases like trans women, to violently put them down, and all sorts of other types of means of ensuring a singular binary definition is the only one that can exist. To answer the question as to why one cannot be a woman the same way that one, say, because it's performative, to the same way that one cannot be Hamlet, but you can play Hamlet. And that's the basics of Judith Butler's theory. So in this one of the reflexivity concept that was kicked over, that's derived straight from that one. And I think I got that one covered pretty well there.
To carry on, so for anyone not familiar with what reflexivity is a idea from sociology that something cause and effect found the way that's separable. So sometimes we like to think of cause and effect one, like a higher, one goes here, and reflexivity has an effort that is inverted like this. So that you can't actually get rid of any one element. And that it made Queer Phenomenology by Sarah Mohammed. I'm not sure how to read her last name, but she had this idea where she found how in the Go play we invest time and energy into the going, and it makes it harder to turn back around. And so gender can also be kind of like that. It's an investment and we kind of just follow that path.
All right. Yeah, that's a much more eloquent and simple way of putting it than what I had presented for my ranting and rambling here.
That was good. Butler, though.
Well, I loved her theories. I thought hers was very good, and other ones I also read, which I know goes very, very lightly to the concept of gender, was Simone de Beauvoir, The Other Sex, where she had argued that to being a woman was to simply not be what is defined as man, and that is a social construction, and one is free to define themselves as necessary. Let's see, other one. Okay, that one's done. Let's see, so there's the cotton ceiling. We got that one.
Do we have any other questions?
Appropriate is a query. Appropriate is appropriate sometimes to liken gender preference to fetish. That was another one got fired off onto me.
Okay. That one links into the cotton ceiling thing, I think. So a lot of times people will use this excuse, really, that they aren't attracted to a trans person because of the genitalia mismatch of the potential. And so, in that sense, Sexual orientation as defined by attraction to genitalia and not by gender, not an orientation in and of itself. So that's all I have to say on that one.
Yeah. See, that looks like the basic questions I got fired off to us that I picked up from mostly newbie leftist. Let's see if there's anything else that got posted since. That one's thus far. It looks like nope. That looks like everything that's been fired to us thus far.
Any questions? Ice stream?
Looking at that thus far, it looks like no. Strangely enough, I think interesting opportunity to go into some other slightly more technical or advanced questions. I guess I don't. Things in which I don't know if you and me would necessarily have much. What I say, things in which you and me haven't. That I don't know if we've discussed it about. But what about the role of how technology, how that will affect and potentially change our ideas and definitions of gender in the role in the future? I mean, right now there's been some pretty interesting role of things that have been coming out, like they've had created a womb that can be used outside of the body, so it kind of like is detaching the traditional procreative roles within generalized sex and sex procreation and all that, and the traditional roles in which you have with the sexist views that women are for the purpose of procreation only. This really kind of challenges those notions. And how is this going to effectively make changes in the future? So I'm a huge tech person. Like I went to college for this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I can't really speak to heavily the technology piece of it, but I recently got involved with a project with some pagan friends of mine on developing what's called an anti-civ and a manifesto within the pagan community. And some of the things that have come up is in a world where we are reconnected to the earth and to each other in a more natural and holistic way. What does it mean for gender and how it's expressed, formed, and identified? The more technology is linked to sociological constructs, like the value systems that we use technology in is that it's all connected to each other. And so gender is this ever-evolving thing where we are constantly experimenting through technology, through our performance and dress, through the words we use to describe. That's why there are quote-unquote new ways of defining people's gender, like identity plus, for example, would be an example of that. And so gender also it's like experimental, ever constantly evolving that, and the society changes with whether that be through our technology, through the imposition of new gender change.
My mom did not like it.
Okay.
I mean, you did.
I'll get Hazel in a second, I promise, alright, buddy? He just found his Halloween costume, decided he really wanted to wear. I'm like, okay.
Hey.
At least it ain't Batman. Okay, buddy. Do you think you can go over by Mama too? Go say hi to her. Tell her about Hazel. Thanks. Okay. But yeah, there's. I think the thing I say, I think with both of the same, what you're working on with your project does have some overlapping into this. I think one of the things though that might make the concept of technology and stuff like that, not to say it can challenge the notions of gender, but I don't see there being like I think one of the reasons we're not going to ever see like a liberation past traditional gender and gender roles, as well as hi again. I say pass. Say Hunter. Can I do this, please? All right. Past that is because there is that I think that some of the other systems that exist, like capitalism, for example, it would be too costly, too difficult for capitalism to ever even consider changing this because they've based themselves off of marketing and everything else like this by splitting up and dividing up groups. And trying to unify a group would make it all the more difficult for them to effectively try to sell products and make products that seem to differentiate from each other. So I think that, and also we have the problems with like some of these new technologies coming out here with like more further advancements in like for in transitions like SRS. I'm still not a big fan of that one, but it's better than some of the other initialisms I heard for it. Gender affirming surgery. I mean, that would got to work on that one because I don't like the pronouncing that. Yeah. So have you had gas yet?
Yeah.
But yeah, with further however, with these things, however, like say, still remain at an incredibly high price that puts it well beyond the ability of people to be able to get, and I don't say, and you're never going to see an end to that. It's how capitalism and all other sorts of systems of oppression overlap. Probably why I think anarchism is probably one of the most effective systems and ideas for trying to at least some sort of a framework, I guess, to best say, to try and analyze these things.
Definitely.
Let's see if we got any other questions. Nope. I think. Well, with that being the case, I think we'll call this one. I think we'll call that end this live stream. I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and if you have any other questions after this video is done like that, feel free to post them in the comments. I will be going back around them, answering them, and also forwarding them to Shay whenever I can. But yeah, thank you for having this. I've actually had this been really fun.
That's pretty great.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Fun.